Spring, 1545. Villages in Mexico's highlands emptied almost overnight. Skin turned yellow, eyes bled, tongues blackened. And within days, whole families were gone. The world called it smallpox, then measles for 5 centuries. But something never fit. If history's deadliest epidemic wasn't what everyone believed, what really caused 15 million people to vanish? And why did it strike worse than the plague? Cocoliztli. In Nahuatl, it meant the Great Pestilence, a word whispered in fear as the dying multiplied. In the high valleys of central Mexico, spring 1545 brought not just illness, but devastation on a scale the world had never seen. People awoke with pounding headaches and fevers that soared by midday. Skin, once brown or olive, turned a sickly yellow. Blood welled from noses, ears, and eyes. Within hours, tongues blackened and urine darkened to the color of seaweed. Convulsions racked the young and old alike. In 3 or 4 days, even the strongest collapsed, their bodies wrung dry by fever and hemorrhage. Entire villages emptied in less than a week. The dead lay in rows, so many that there was no time for prayers or proper burial. In the city of Tlaxcala alone, nearly 150,000 perished. Across the Valley of Mexico, the toll climbed to 800,000. By the time the plague burned itself out, as many as 15 million people, 4 out of every 5, were gone. The scale of death dwarfed even the Black Death that had swept Europe 2 centuries before. No family was spared. Children vanished with their parents. Fields were left untended. Temples abandoned. Streets overtaken by silence. The chroniclers of the time wrote of bodies piled in haste, of a stench so thick it choked the living, of a terror that left survivors numb. The Spanish conquerors, who had arrived only a generation earlier, watched as the world they had seized seemed to vanish overnight. But the Aztecs and their neighbors had no name for the disease that stalked them. They called it Cocoliztli, the Pestilence, but its true nature was a riddle. Why did it strike with such fury, and why did it spare so few? For centuries the cause would remain hidden, buried alongside the millions who fell in those haunted years. For generations the textbooks gave a simple answer. Smallpox, measles, or perhaps influenza, European diseases brought by the conquistadors, had swept through the Americas like wildfire. The story seemed neat, almost inevitable, but the reality of Cocoliztli refused to fit these explanations. The symptoms described by survivors and chroniclers were too strange, too violent. Victims bled from their faces, not just their skin. Their tongues turned black and their urine sometimes ran the color of seaweed. The speed was staggering. Death in days, not weeks. No known European illness matched this pattern. By the late 1500s, even the most learned doctors were confounded. Francisco Hernandez, royal physician to King Philip II, arrived in New Spain decades after the first wave had passed. He set out to document not just the plants and animals of the New World, but also its plagues. Hernandez pored over the accounts of the afflicted and saw the second Cocoliztli outbreak with his own eyes. He recorded symptoms in careful detail: high fever, vertigo, black tongue, dark urine, jaundice, and profuse bleeding from the nose, eyes, and mouth. The disease, he wrote, killed with a speed and violence that defied all known remedies. Hernandez tried the best medicine of his era: herbs, bleeding, purges, but nothing worked. He was forced to admit in his notes that this was unlike anything the old world physicians had seen. The Cocoliztli, he wrote, seemed to come from nowhere. Nobody knew what it was. Despite these first-hand accounts, later historians clung to the familiar culprits. For nearly 5 centuries, academic debates circled the same suspects. Some pointed to typhus or viral hemorrhagic fevers. Others insisted on smallpox, citing the devastation it caused in the decades after conquest. Yet the evidence never quite matched. The blackened tongues, the sea-green urine, the speed of death, these details lingered in the margins of colonial manuscripts, stubborn reminders that the real killer remained unnamed. The true cause of Cocoliztli slipped through the cracks of history, buried in mass graves and scattered eyewitness notes. Until recently, every theory rested on guesswork and incomplete records. The mystery endured, unsolved, as the bones of the dead waited in silence for science to catch up. High in the hills of Oaxaca, the Mixtec city of Teposcolula-Yucundaa stands frozen in time. After the epidemic swept through in 1545, the survivors abandoned their homes, leaving the city to the wind and rain. No one ever returned. For archaeologists, this silence offered something rare, a site untouched since the moment it was deserted. In the heart of the city, the Grand Plaza became a makeshift cemetery. Beneath its packed earth, thousands of bodies lay in shallow, hurried graves. The patterns of burial told their own story. Skeletons were jumbled together, some facing the wrong direction, others layered one atop another. There was no sign of the careful rituals that once marked Mixtec funerals. No offerings, no grave goods, no time for farewells. The dead had been lowered quickly, sometimes several at once, as if the living could not flee fast enough. Archaeologists from Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History, working alongside local Mixtec communities, mapped every grave. They found that the Epidemic cemetery was completely separate from earlier churchyard burials, which followed strict alignments and traditions. Here, all order had collapsed. The sheer number of skeletons, the absence of reburials or later disturbance, and the city's total abandonment created a kind of accidental archive. Unlike other sites, which were rebuilt or scavenged in the centuries after, Teposcolula-Yucundaa remained sealed. Every tooth, every bone, every layer of soil preserved the exact moment when the world ended for its people. For scientists, this meant a rare chance, a closed time capsule, unspoiled by later generations, holding the physical evidence of a forgotten catastrophe. In these undisturbed graves, the clues to Cocoliztli's true nature waited, locked away for nearly 500 years. In a sterile laboratory, 5 centuries of mystery met the sharp end of a tooth. Researchers at the Max Planck Institute drilled into the pulp chambers of teeth taken from the Epidemic cemetery at Teposcolula-Yucundaa. The pulp, once filled with blood, now held the genetic fingerprints of whatever had killed so many. Using a tool called MALT, the team scanned for every known pathogen, bacteria, viruses, anything that might leave a mark in ancient DNA. The answer came not from smallpox or measles, but from a name almost no one expected: Salmonella enterica paratifi C. This strain, nearly extinct in the modern world, is a cousin to the bacteria that caused typhoid fever. In 1545, it was a nightmare. Enteric fever, as it is known, attacks the body from the inside out. After entering through contaminated water or food, the bacteria invade the gut, then the bloodstream. High fevers set in. Organs swell and begin to fail. Blood vessels leak, causing the hemorrhaging seen in the victims, with blood from the eyes, nose and mouth. Dehydration and septic shock followed. Without immunity, without antibiotics, death was almost certain. But why did this bacteria, now so rare, become so deadly then? The answer lies in the world the epidemic struck. Spanish livestock, cattle and pigs roamed the highlands, polluting rivers and streams with waste. The year 1545 brought a mega drought, one of the worst in half a millennium. With water scarce, people and animals crowded around the same muddy pools. Fecal-oral transmission became inescapable. The native population, never exposed to salmonella before, had no defences. Social collapse meant no one could care for the sick or bury the dead. The bacteria spread unchecked, turning a common gut infection into an apocalypse. In the end, the killer was not a plague from Europe's past, but a perfect storm, an old world bacterium, a new world of vulnerability, and a landscape broken by drought and despair. Today, new pathogens still cross borders faster than ever, and global immunity remains uneven. The lesson of 1545 is stark. Unknown diseases thrive when societies fragment. As our world grows more connected, our vulnerability and responsibility only deepen. The next outbreak is not a mystery, it is a test. Share your thoughts below.